Well, in today's gospel reading for the 13th Sunday after Pentecost, we hear Jesus ask the disciples that very interesting question: who do you say that I am? And so that's the question I want to start off with this morning, and I want you to consider. Who do you say that Jesus is? I mean, when you close your eyes to pray to Jesus, whom are you picturing in your mind's eye? For the first half of my life, what I pictured in my mind's eye was somebody that looked like this. Because this was the image of Jesus that I grew up with. In my 12 years of Catholic schooling, this was the picture of Jesus that hung in every classroom right above the blackboard. And we had a similar looking picture of Jesus in our home, in our dining room. And we got to see this image of Jesus in statues, on stained glass windows. In the little illustrated children's Bible I had, Jesus looked like that. And even when I watched Hollywood movies that depicted Jesus, they were by actors who looked like that. But I think we all know Jesus didn't look like this. This guy never existed. Now, back in 2017, I gave a talk here at Douglas UCC on what the real Jesus looked like. And to date, it is our most watched video on YouTube. That one talk has almost 350,000 views and over 8,000 comments, most of them negative. And the reason that they were so upset is because during that talk, I shared an image of what the real Jesus probably looked like. It was an image that was in National Geographic magazine a few years ago. You may have seen it. National Geographic invited a group of the world's leading theologians and anthropologists to come together and imagine what the real Jesus probably looked like. And this is the image they came up with. So, when you close your eyes to imagine Jesus in your time of need and comfort, is this what you picture in your mind's eye? For many Christians in America today, if they saw this guy walking around their neighborhood at night, they would call the police. This is the guy that they wouldn't want to be sitting next to on an airplane or buying the house next door. And for many Christians in America today, this is the guy they want to ban from coming into our country. Now, several of those comments on YouTube said, "Why does it matter so much what Jesus looks like? Who cares what he looks like?" Well, I think it matters very much. I do. Because I think if we saw that image growing up on our stained glass windows, on our statues, in our illustrated children's Bibles, and in our Hollywood movies, we would be much more compassionate and accepting of the least of these in our midst. Jesus was a dark-skinned, poor refugee. His name was Yeshua, and he spoke Aramaic. He led a countercultural movement that so upset the religious and political authorities of his day that they needed to arrest and silence him. That's who Jesus really was. And I think it's very important that we as Christians know that, because the purpose of being a Christian is to follow in the steps of Jesus. So if we don't really know who he was or what he was about, how can we follow in his steps? I think it's very important that we know who Jesus was, so that when we see the migrant family crossing the border, and we see the poor refugee or the Middle Eastern man on the airplane, we'll say, oh, that's the Christ in our midst. Now, the very popular political commentator, John Fugelsang, a few years ago, he spoke about who the real Jesus was. And his words so resonated with people that those words are now on posters and on T-shirts. And this is what he said. Jesus was a radical, nonviolent revolutionary. He hung around with lepers, hookers, and crooks. He wasn't American, and he never spoke English. He was anti-wealth, anti-death penalty, anti-public prayer. He was never anti-gay. He never mentioned abortion or birth control. He never called the poor lazy. He never justified torture. He never fought for tax cuts for the wealthiest Nazarenes. He never asked a leper for a copay. And was a long-haired, brown-skinned, homeless, community organizing, and slut-shaming Middle Eastern Jew. That's who Jesus was. It's very important that we know that, because a large majority of Christians in America today have a very different understanding of who Jesus was. You may remember back in March, the very popular Christian pastor John Pavlovitz was right here at our church. He spoke from this very podium. And if you remember, John Pavlovitz said that if the real Jesus came back today, most Christians wouldn't even recognize him. He said, Jesus rejected the exclusion and rigidity of religious fundamentalists. He championed the poor, and he opposed the powerful. He freely gave food to the hungry and care to the sick. He welcomed women in ministry, and he treated them as equals. He decried personal and systemic violence. He condemned the hoarding of wealth. He was an activist for the common good. Jesus was a progressive. That's what John Pavlovitz said. And many of you know last month I attended the UCC General Synod, the national gathering of all of our 5,000 UCC churches. And I got to take a picture with one of our UCC national officers, the Reverend Tracy Blackman. And of Jesus, she said this: most of Jesus' public ministry was spent reaching out to those who were ignored in the community and underserved by the ruling class. So in my quest to follow him, I'm compelled to do the same. Again, my friends, we can't call ourselves Christians, followers of the way of Jesus, if we don't follow what he did, who he was, what he was about. what we heard from those religious leaders just now, they're reminding us that our call as Christians is to go and do as Jesus did. So what we have to do is that image of the white, blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus, we have to get rid of that. That guy never existed. And we have to start inviting in more authentic pictures of Jesus into our churches and into our homes and into our prayer. So what I want to invite you to do this week is I want you to go online and I want you to find some more authentic images of what Jesus looked like. So many artists have imagined Jesus as a black Jesus, a Native American Jesus, an Asian Jesus. I want you to find images of Jesus that are different from the ones you grew up with. I want you to print them out, and I want you to bring them to your time of prayer and meditation. Because I guarantee that that will begin to transform your heart and mind. When we do that, we can begin to see Jesus more clearly, love him more dearly, and follow in his way more nearly. Namaste.
Hello, everybody. This is Sal Sapienza, and I'm so excited to share with all of you that I've written a brand new book. The book is called Childish Thinking: How the Church Keeps Us Stuck in Sunday School. Now, the title Childish Thinking comes from Christian scripture, where we hear that if we wish to grow in spiritual understanding, then we must let go of childish ways of thinking. And yet so many Christians today, even after years of Bible study and Sunday services, still have a very elementary understanding of their faith. They still understand God as some old man with a long gray beard. They think heaven is a place up in the clouds with pearly gates, that the devil is some red guy with horns and a pitchfork, and that hell is a fiery place below the earth. Those are things that we tell children. None of those descriptions appear anywhere in the Bible. And so in Childish Thinking, I try to dispel many of those misnomers, and I explore topics such as God, Jesus, heaven, hell, sin, prayer, and resurrection from the higher perspectives of ancient Christian mystics and contemporary progressive theologians. After each chapter, there are prayers for quiet contemplation and questions for personal reflection and journal writing. Come learn how you can let go of old ways of thinking and begin to see things with new eyes. Come and learn how you can finally graduate from Sunday school. The book is available now on Amazon, and you can read the entire introduction at childishthinking.faith.